Ernest Campbell's phone rang at 8 on the morning of August 2nd, 1976. A doctor in central Pennsylvania had 4 dead patients, all American Legion men, all dead from pneumonia within days of each other. 4 healthy middle-aged men don't just drop dead from lung infections. Campbell listened harder. Every caller named the same 4 days in late July, the same hotel in Philadelphia, the Bellevue Stratford. By nightfall, the count wasn't 4 anymore. Past 100 sick Legionnaires scattered across the state and still climbing. The CDC in Atlanta was already involved. No one knew what was killing them. Not swine flu, not any known bacteria on standard lab plates, not poison, nothing fit. And here was the part that turned Campbell's stomach. These men had gone home days ago. They'd ridden buses, eaten in restaurants, hugged their wives. Whatever this was, it had already traveled. The phone found Ernest Campbell at his desk on August 2nd. A Pittsburgh hospital had 3 pneumonia deaths in one ward. All Legionnaires, all from the same Philadelphia weekend. He set the receiver down and reached for his list. 5 more calls came that afternoon, 10 the next day. The Legionnaires had scattered to 24 counties, carrying whatever this was inside their lungs. Within 48 hours, emergency rooms filled with men who matched with terrible precision. Sudden fever above 104 degrees, a dry cough that turned wet, then a terrifying struggle to breathe. Chest X-rays showed lungs flooding with fluid, white patches spreading like spilled milk. Antibiotics did nothing. Some crashed so fast that families barely reached the hospital in time. By August 4th, 18 were dead. By August 6th, 27. Newspapers ran front-page stories. Television crews camped outside the Bellevue Stratford, filming empty doorways. Rumors multiplied faster than cases. Was this swine flu? A bioweapon? Something in the hotel kitchen, the water, the air itself. The phones at Pennsylvania's health department rang without stopping. Every new fever felt like the first ripple of a coming wave. 34 dead now, 221 sick. And still, no one could answer the question that kept Campbell awake at 3 in the morning. When he looked at a crowded bus, a busy restaurant, a playground full of children, was he already looking at tomorrow's victims? David Fraser stepped into the Bellevue Stratford's lobby on August 3rd, and the chandeliers burned above empty velvet ropes, as if the hotel itself were waiting to be accused. 50 Epidemic Intelligence Service officers followed him through the revolving doors with metal sample cases that clicked like ammunition boxes. He split them into teams. One mapped every corridor, every vent, every kitchen surface. Another traced footsteps backward from hospital beds to hotel rooms to banquet tables to the same few hours in late July when everything changed. Lab technicians worked in shifts around the clock. They tested blood and lung tissue for swine flu, for psittacosis, for every bacterial villain with a name. They screened for heavy metals, for chemical toxins, for poisons that might lurk in a ventilation shaft. Each test came back negative. The newspapers found new rumors daily. Congressional phones rang. Fraser's teams doubled, then doubled again, until 200 investigators made this the biggest disease hunt in CDC history. Still nothing. The death toll kept climbing. And if the enemy was not any known pathogen, then the enemy was something medicine had never seen. Fraser's team spread their maps across a borrowed table. Red pins marked where each victim had walked, sat, eaten, slept. The banquet hall showed scattered cases. The guest rooms, almost none. But the lobby, that marble-floored lobby with its potted palms and crystal chandeliers, nearly every sick person had passed through it, lingered there, breathed that air for hours. Fraser drove to the hotel himself. He stood in the empty lobby one evening in mid-August, watching dust motes drift through late sunlight. Not contagion passed hand to hand. Something else. Something that rose from the carpet, the walls, the ventilation itself. He called environmental engineers. They brought air samplers, chemical detectors, particle counters. The hypothesis shifted beneath them. No longer a disease jumping person to person. Now, a building attacking its guests. A toxin, perhaps. An invisible compound drifting through ducts, settling in lungs, burning them from within. The team worked through another night, dismantling ceiling panels, tracing the steel maze above the lobby. What inside this elegant ordinary space could sicken and kill dozens of healthy adults so fast? Fraser climbed to the roof. Below him, the Bellevue Stratford spread silent. Grand ballroom empty, chandeliers dark. But the machinery still ran. Above it all sat the cooling tower. A metal box the size of a garage, water inside warm from the July heat, fan spinning day and night. The system worked by evaporation. Water turned to mist, air cooled, then got drawn down through ducts into every corner below. Fraser walked the perimeter. The tower's exhaust sat near the fresh air intake. He didn't need a tape measure. He could feel it. For 3 sweltering days, while several thousand Legionnaires shook hands and smoked beneath those chandeliers, this fan had kept working. Not just cooling, misting, drawing warm, stagnant water into vapor, feeding it straight into the breathing space of the lobby. That water had sat undisturbed for weeks. Warm, dark, a breeding ground. Fraser felt the pieces shift. Not a toxin manufactured by man. Something alive. Something that had multiplied unseen in that dark water, then ridden the currents down into lungs, into blood. The tower was the gun, but what was the bullet? Joseph McDade carried the Philadelphia lung tissue back to his lab in Atlanta. 4 months of dead ends. No virus grew in standard culture. No common bacterium showed under ordinary stains. The samples had defeated everyone. But McDade worked with intracellular organisms, microbes that burrow inside human cells and laugh at petri dishes. He had a different idea. He injected the tissue into guinea pigs. Then he waited. One animal grew feverish, its breathing turned shallow and fast. Something had survived the journey from Philadelphia, through a human lung, through months of frozen storage, into this small living body. McDade harvested that tissue and passed it into embryonated eggs. Another wait. When he finally lifted the silver stain to the slide and leaned into his microscope, he saw them. Thin rods, clustered like tiny cigars, unknown to science. A new bacterium, a new disease. He named it Legionella pneumophila. But a lab finding is only half an answer. The same organism had to be living in that hotel's water. Without that match, McDade had only a corpse and a theory. In January 1977, the report landed on McDade's desk. Legionella pneumophila, cultured from the Bellevue Stratford's rooftop cooling tower. The same thin rods, living in warm, stagnant water, multiplying by the billion, then riding the aerosol drift down through the lobby where thousands of Legionnaires had breathed it deep. Water became mist. Mist became breath. Breath became pneumonia. The CDC announced the discovery to a press corps that had spent 6 months chasing swine flu and bioweapons. They named the illness Legionnaires' disease after the men who carried it home from Philadelphia. One building's mechanical system, a single cooling tower with a poorly placed exhaust, had rewritten medical textbooks. Every skyscraper, every hotel, every climate-controlled space with standing water now carried an invisible risk. But naming the killer and sealing one tower solved nothing. The same systems hummed in cities across the world, and no one yet knew how many were already breeding their own outbreaks. The Bellevue Stratford never reopened as a hotel. The outbreak had tainted it beyond recovery, and the building stood empty for years before becoming offices. But the investigation's legacy outlasted the hotel itself. Cooling towers are now inspected. Water systems get treated with biocides. Physicians know to look for Legionella when a patient shows up with pneumonia and a fever that won't break. The 1976 outbreak taught us that the air we breathe indoors can carry deadly passengers. Sometimes the greatest threats aren't viral or foreign. They're born in the plumbing of our own buildings. A cooling tower on a quiet rooftop, water trickling through slats, a faint mist curling into the afternoon air. Silent, ordinary, and a permanent reminder that some killers hide in plain sight.